Hello and welcome to Interim Budget 2019 edition of TIOL Tube. Much to the expectations of the common taxpayers and the common man, the Indian Finance Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal, who presented the budget in place of Mr. Arun Jaitley, who is not in India. He is undergoing some kind of medical treatment abroad. He certainly did not disappoint Mr. Jaitley and others. He first recapitulated the journey so far of the last 5 years, the achievements of his government, which was quite predictable because this was the interim budget and the outgoing government will be going to the people again for the Lok Sabha elections. But contrary to the nationwide expectations and the hype being created that he is likely to unfold many tax reliefs, it was not seen in the finance bill. If you go through the fine prints of the finance bill, a few changes are there. Although Mr. Goyal announced that up to the level of 5 lakh annual income, the taxpayers perhaps will have to pay no tax at all. But how exactly this is going to work? Because he has not given general exemption up to 5 lakhs rupees. He announced that it's going to be tax rebate. We have Mr. Rajnish Kumar, former Chief Commissioner of Income Tax, with us. And let me go to him. He will explain how exactly this is going to work. So, sir, please explain that how exactly this tax rebate up to 5 lakhs per annum is going to work for the taxpayers.
Now, there was a concept of marginal relief in section 87A, and last year it was 2,500 rupees. Tax was not levied. That rebate was given at that stage. So, what happens that tax is calculated, and then if it is less than 2,500 for this year, the rebate would be given. So, tax payable would be nil. Right. Now, what the Honorable Finance Minister has done is to raise this 2,500 to 12,500. So, in this 12,500 is the tax between 2,50,000 and rupees 5 lakhs. Okay. So, the entire amount goes out. So, tax will not be payable, but nevertheless tax will be levied and not collected. So, the taxpayer will be required to file the return of income.
Okay, so the return has to be filed.
The second aspect is that those whose incomes are above 5 lakhs, they will not get this advantage of relief of 87 lakhs.
Tax relief,
income has to will not be available to them.
Okay, sir. Okay. So, but it basically means that the return has to be filed.
Return has to be filed and rebate claimed.
And rebate claimed in the return itself. That is how it will work. Thank you, sir, for explaining the whole concept that this rebate has come via section 87A, which used to earlier grant 2,500 rupees. Now the threshold has been increased to 12,500 rupees, and that is how the tax liability, which works out to 12,500 rupees up to rupees 5 lakh annual income, it's completely exempted. But he has rightly explained it that a taxpayer will have to file the return, disclose all the incomes, and then claim this rebate. It also means that anybody who has got an income more than 5 lakhs rupees, that taxpayer will not be eligible for this kind of rebate. So, if your income is going to be even 5 lakh 1 rupees, that 1 rupee is going to cost you 12,500 rupees, because you will have to pay that tax of 12,500 rupees the moment you exceed the 5 lakh threshold. So, this is a kind of tax relief which will benefit the target audience, probably the urban middle class, and a huge number of taxpayers, which, as per the data released or talked about in the last budget, Mr. Arun Jaitley talked about those data, that as many as more than 2 crore taxpayers, they have been declaring income less than 5 lakhs rupees. So, probably that segment is going to be benefited by this relief. But if you look at other relief which have been announced by Mr. Piyush Goyal, particularly for real estate sector and also for individual taxpayers who own more than one house in terms of capital gains. So, if you look at section, for instance, in terms of notional rental income, so here in section 24, section 54, certain amendments have been proposed, and those amendments are going to benefit the individual taxpayers in terms of section 54, the capital gains. Earlier, it was mandatory that you invest it in one house. Now, the same capital gains can be invested in 2 houses. And then we have this section, of course, the notional rental. The notional rental income earlier, it was again confined to one house. Now you can avail it on two houses. However, if you go to finance bill, we find that there is a little interesting amendment which withdraws part of the benefit which was available to a taxpayer by inserting some proviso in section 24, that benefit of which was available up to rupees 2,30,000, that has been restricted to the maximum limit of 2 lakhs. So there the taxpayer is going to lose 30,000 rupees in terms of this amendment. But if you go to for the real estate developers, of course, there is a good news. He has not only extended the benefit of section 80IBA, which basically means that up to March 2020, if a real estate developer is able to register any project, that developer will be eligible for this benefit. Secondly, that notional rental, which the exemption which was available to a real estate developer on unsold stock of flats or constructed houses, that benefit has been extended from 1 year to 2 years. So that's a good relief for badly hurt and damaged real estate sector, I will say, because in last 3-4 years, if you look at the growth rate and if you look at the kind of pain the real estate sector is going through, it's a good relief for them. So these are the changes which have been proposed in the IT in the finance bill on the income tax front by Mr. Goyal. Two another interesting changes which will certainly give large scale relief to good number of taxpayers is, one is small companies which take houses on rent and they are liable to deduct TDS. So that threshold has been raised from 1,80,000 to 2,40,000. That's a good relief. That will save them from the hassle of compliance, etc., and keeping records. But another which will help the banks as well as good number of taxpayers who keep their money in banks and earn interest on their fixed deposits. That is that section 194A, the TDS threshold has been raised to 40,000. So that's a huge relief for good number of individual taxpayers and also the banks, because the banks were liable to deduct tax, keep records of it, file their returns, deposit TDS. So it will reduce their compliance costs. So those are two significant interesting changes in the TDS threshold. So for understanding how exactly this notional rental benefit it works and the kind of restriction which has been imposed, let me go back to Mr. Rajnish Kumar once again. So sir, please explain how exactly these amendments in section 23, 24, how this is going to work.
Now, there are two notional income that he has referred to.
Okay, sir.
One is self-occupied property.
Right.
So, till now, one self-occupied property but not let out was not being taxed.
Right, sir. Okay.
So, income was taken at nil because the person was staying elsewhere. So, that house was vacant, it was not, but self-occupied. Now, he has extended it to 2 houses.
Right, sir.
And he referred to the parents and the children. So, for parents staying in the old place, that it's not let out,
right, sir.
it is under self-occupation.
Right, sir.
Or even if it is vacant, it is under self-occupation. Now, because of this education requirement, etc., the person is moving to a 3rd place. So, his 2nd house is also vacant, it's not let out.
Right, sir.
So, not what the benefit he has given is that these 2 houses will not be taxed on notional income.
Notional.
Earlier it was benefit was for 1, now it has been extended to 2 houses. This is one aspect of notional income. Another notional income was being taxed as per these provisions of the Act was about the flats constructed by the builders.
Right, sir.
And after having obtained the occupation certificate, and it was not sold out, so builder had to bear the notional income.
Notional income, right, sir.
So in last year, the FM had given a benefit of 1 year. Okay. Now he has extended it to another year.
Thanking you, sir, for explaining all these income tax related changes. Apart from these changes, Mr. Goyal, of course, keeping in mind and the future roadmap and also the promises made and the focus, the target audience for elections as well, he talked about the much talked about the basic, the income support scheme, which was quite predictable. It was in the making for quite some time, and he announced an income support scheme for small and marginal farmers up to 6,000 rupees per annum. Although this is going to be paid in 3 installments of rupees 2,000, but what is significant is that which is said that this scheme, which was announced today, is going to be effective from December 2018. So that means the first installment of this benefit is going to be made available to identify target audience, although it's going to be a gigantic task for government machinery to identify and also find out who are eligible for this benefit, because this is going to go through this direct transfer route. So the money has to be transferred from the government account directly to the beneficiary's account. So that's going to be a gigantic exercise, but of course it's a pre-election time, and this kind of announcement will certainly help the BJP government in terms of garnering more votes. That will always remain there as one of the goals. Apart from that, some changes, some other schemes which were announced, like pension scheme for huge number of workers in the unorganized sector. There are good number of workers who are earning wages up to 15,000 rupees per month. Mr. Goyal said that if somebody contributes 100 rupees and from earlier age perhaps 50 rupees, the government is going to make equal amount of contribution and they are going to earn pension up to 60 of rupees 3,000. So that's a good relief for the unorganized sector. So in a way, it's a kind of social security network which is being widened to help marginal, uncared have-nots in the economy. So that is another scheme which is very important. A very significant change which is being proposed in the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Perhaps that is also a failure of our investigative machinery which has been admitted. The attachment of property in case of any kind of alleged violation of PMLA provisions, the existing law says that this can be attached only up to 90 days. Now that period is being extended to 365 days, and that's too long a period. For failure of the investigator and the machinery to wrap up the investigation in time, again it's a kind of reward which is going to go in favor of inefficiency in the system, and the victim, the common man, is perhaps, or any allegation itself is enough to deprive somebody of his own property for 365 days. So that's a very draconian amendment, perhaps that needs to be re-looked upon, and perhaps the period needs to be reduced because it's going to be completely 1 year, unless it is targeted only for, or some detailed guidelines are there that it should not be invoked in all cases indiscriminately. Perhaps that is another area where experts should take a look at it. So in a nutshell, the interim budget, normally historically, if you go by convention, if you look at a number of interim budgets, normally fiscal provisions are never amended, not much tax reliefs are announced, amendments in IT acts are announced. But contrary to all that, Mr. Piyush Goyal has intelligently managed to come up with certain proposals and impress and target certain middle class, urban middle class and the rural class, good number of taxpayers. Although he said that the tax base has grown from 3.67 to 6.87 crore and the taxpayers deserve some kind of reward. But that reward has been limited for certain sections perhaps, and that is why the revenue loss has been projected to be only in the range of about 18,000 crore. So it's not much, because the relief in any case is not being extended beyond 5 lakhs rupees. So all other taxpayers will have to wait for a full-fledged budget, which will perhaps come when the new government is installed at the center and takes over the power after the general elections. And if we go by what happened 5 years back, full-fledged budget was unfolded in July 2014 by NDA government. Perhaps whichever party comes into power, we can look forward to more relief and more announcements and more tax relief for the economy, perhaps in July. Thanking you all for watching TIOL Tube.